All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com and The Ultimate Man. And today I have a really special guest, guys. One guy that I've been wanting so much to interview, and he's been recommended by so many other past guests like Sean Russell, like Dan Munro. These guys keep raving about this guy. And I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
good.
this is an awesome guy. I got to get on. I went checked out his website. And he's like, man, this guy sings to my heart, right? And he is the founder of
All right.
Social Heartistry, the movement to help guys really break free, right, from the chains that they put on their heart. And he's also a #1 international best-selling author of the book Game Over. And most of all, he is just a pure soul, and I'm glad to actually interact
Oh
with him.
man,
His name
you
is John Cooper. John, man, thank you for
oh,
jumping in.
this sounds like the introduction to like a TV talk show. I love it. You're putting a smile on my face. Your energy, man. Whoa,
Oh
love
man,
it.
well, man, it's just coming from the heart, man, and just reading some of
Yeah,
your stuff. I'm just excited to have you in, man. And so, John,
yeah,
man, for the people who don't know who you are, could you give us a bit more about yourself and your
yeah.
journey to social artistry?
Okay, yeah. So people might know me from the dating community, and I've been involved with that for about 5, 6 years. And I got into that because of a broken heart, getting dumped by a girl that I was in love with, as I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure we've all gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And that forced me down the path of trying to pick up girls and acquire lots of sex and lots of validation, lots of acceptance. And then as I started to sort of heal my own heart and do a lot of self-exploration work, I realized that it's we don't need to be chasing women to find the love within ourselves. The love is there if we have the courage to look for it and find it within ourselves. And then as I start to do that heart healing work, I started to suddenly look around me and see the kind of the world that I was in, and I suddenly realized I was in this very toxic environment, and this sort of like filled with like military maneuvers and guys that are just very hot, actually going through a lot of abandonment issues when you go into it, and they
Mm-hmm.
were trying to seek salvation through sex,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And I was working for a company. It was like a pickup company at the time, and I thought, well, this is helping men with women, so there's nothing wrong with this. But then I was finding myself doing like in-field videos where I'd be like filming myself, like picking girls up on the streets and stuff. And there was like a splinter in my mind. I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. And I was under a lot of pressure to make these videos, and I just couldn't do them in the end. And then as I started to do more healing work and kind of like come to terms with myself, I was like, what the hell are we doing, guys? Like, we're trying to this is like abuse of women just in order to show that we're good with women.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's crazy. um, and I had some little revelations along the way when I realized it's not about getting results from women. It's not about how many girls we can sleep with or how many girls we can get into bed and how we can score. It's just about how honest we can express ourselves, and it's in the transmission. It's not trying to take from women. It's actually about giving. And so I realized that was a huge paradigm shift. And so at the time of speaking this 2, 3 years ago, no one was talking about this. And so I thought I'd create a new paradigm, which I called Social Heartistry. And it's all just about expressing from the heart without the need for results. And of course, within that, it includes women, it includes sex, but it doesn't need it in order for it to be fulfilled. So I've been doing this for a couple years solo now, and which we'll probably talk about in a minute. But like, there's another layer to this. As you peel off the onion layers to yourself, the onion layers come off to your own business, right?
Yeah.
You'll find this, Richard, right? Like, your business is a complete reflection of where you're at as a person. Okay,
Yeah.
so as you go deeper into alignment with yourself, you'll notice your business shapes accordingly, correspondingly, right? So
Mm.
I've gone into a little bit of almost like, I'd say, a metamorphosis period in the last few months where I haven't put out that much material, and that's because I've realized that there's something else about to come up. There's a new alignment coming through, and I've now realized that what I'm teaching, which is all about coming from the heart, coming from creation, coming from childlike spirit, which we'll go into later,
Mm.
that is actually good for humanity. And if you notice, we look around us, everyone is serious. They're we've got to grow up, and you could see even their bodies are all calcified and rigid, and like they've lost that like childlike flow.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what I've realized is the core of my message is actually how to get adults to reclaim their childlike spirit and actually reclaim all those qualities of love, of giving, of forgiveness,
Mm.
of like being able to cry, even, that sense of childlike exploration and curiosity, all
Mm.
these things that children have that we've lost. Okay, so this is where I'm at now with the mission Social Heartistry. Started off in the dating world, and now it's going on to a big mission, which I believe could, could change humanity.
Oh, bro, man, I love that, man. And it just struck me, man, when you're talking about the onions, man, because I've recently gone through that, and it's a period, and I totally understand what you mean. It's like you think, and to sum it up, it's like you think you know everything about yourself right now, and you accept everything about yourself, and then only to realize it cracks open. You're like, oh my God, there's all this other stuff I didn't know about myself, right? I didn't know I didn't accept that. I didn't know this was actually important to me, and I love that you're experiencing that, and that you're being real, and you're just sharing that this is what's happening with you and your business. And it's so true, man. What you're saying is that it's a reflection. Your business is a reflection of how you're traveling through your own life. And
Absolutely, and those onion layers, let's call them the onion layers, right? Okay,
yeah.
a lot of people get stuck on one onion layer, don't they, for the rest of their life, because they like make a lot of money, and they're like the sheep that are happy to graze on the side of the mountain, let's say, But like what happens within me, within my soul, is that I encounter pain. There's a pain within me that comes up, okay? And at first, when this pain came up, like around 2013, I just couldn't make sense of it. I didn't know what was going on. Now looking back, I know exactly what that pain was. Okay, it was the soul saying, begging now to reach a new audience. It's begging now to bring out new ideas and expand. Okay, so what happens is, like the heart, if you can imagine the heart or the soul, it wants to expand. It wants to grow. Okay, now if you're just keeping that onion layer on it, it's going to feel that inertia. It's going to feel that pressure pushing up against it. Okay, if you listen to your body, you know that that's got to break in order for it to grow. Okay, so certain things have to break in your life for you to grow to the next level. So that might mean leaving your business, leaving a company that you work for. It might mean breaking up with a girlfriend, or having a girl break up with you. It might be letting go of people that are very dear to you, whatever it is. But these things need to crack for you to grow to the next level. So when I felt that pain, it was like, oh God, this is really irrational. I can't make sense of this. But looking back, that was my internal barometer. That was like my internal measurement saying, come on, like, step through now, break through to the next level, and start speaking to new audiences, new people, bring out new ideas, all this kind of stuff. And that was the soul speaking to me.
Oh, man, I love that, man. I love that. And I want to touch about this, man, because you're talking about like the childlike spirit. And I think it's really important, because sometimes, I mean, we can talk about adults being like children, right? Like, a guy goes out with a girl, and then the girl ends up being like a mother to the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're not talking about that type of childlike spirit. So how do you actually define, like, where is the balance, right, for guys and girls, right? Let's tap into the childlike spirit, but let's not be childish.
Exactly. I was just about to say that before you dropped the mantra there. It's about being childlike, not childish. Okay, and there's a massive difference behind that, right? So, like, being childlike is the ability to allow yourself to cry. Okay, to cleanse yourself. Yeah, children cry all the time. Yeah. And it's very cleansing. After it, they feel amazing and it's gone, right? But what happens is, as adults, we hang on to that pain and we don't want to cry because it's seen as a weakness. So we basically get a lot of energy trapped in our bodies, and it causes a lot of dis-ease. Okay, but being childish is actually about throwing a tantrum to get what we need in that moment, to cover up pain. That's what childish means. Okay, so being childlike is also fearlessly walking up to people, fearlessly exploring. That's being childlike in essence, right?
Curiosity.
Childish should be like, curiosity. Childish should be like refusing to leave the bedroom because it's throwing a tantrum. Don't want to go out. You know what I mean? So that there's two aspects to the child there. One is the childlike spirit, which I'm talking about, and one is like the childish, like defense mechanisms, because it like doesn't want to feel pain. So it kind of like, in defense of that pain, it will like throw tantrums. It will become victim. It will like, seek pacifications from the mum, and like go for the dummy and the Mr. Blanky and all that kind of stuff. That's childish. But I'm talking about childlikeness. So in many ways, the subheading for my project Social Heartistry is fearlessness through childlikeness. If that makes sense, right? Because this is another thing that I want to briefly touch upon, is that there's so much talk in society about overcoming your fears. And you see this in the dating world. This is like the men's movement talk about this, right? Be the warrior, alpha male, plow, put a gun to your head, go, go, go. Whereas that's like using fear to defeat fear, isn't it? It's like taking on an aggressive approach to kind of like bash down fear.
Mm-hmm.
But fearlessness, if you look at the word fearlessness, it's like the absence of fear, fearlessness.
Mm.
And the way to have fearlessness in the way that I'm talking about is to choose love, choose a loving behavior. And through love, there is no fear. Love is the absence of fear. So you can either try and blast through fear, the way that they teach you in all these men's movements and stuff like that, or
Mm-hmm.
you can just choose to be more loving in that moment. And the way that I describe it, the metaphor I give, is to observe children and to be childlike. And
Mm-hmm.
so the foundation of my work is actually about reclaiming all those childlike qualities that I mentioned earlier. You know, we want to be more honest, don't we? There's always a talk about
Mm-hmm.
radical honesty, right? We're doing courses for radical honesty. Well, children are honest. They're
Yeah.
brutally honest, you
Yeah.
know, and until it encountered punishment and where we got hurt from it, and it conditioned us not to be honest anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They have courses for like tantra and erotic courses and seduction boot camps and stuff. Well, children are incredibly erotic. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, they've got no shame over their sex. They're often playing with themselves. You know, they have, and it's done completely innocently, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's you know, children are very giving, aren't they? They're just full of love. They're full of giving. They're full of forgiveness. They don't hold grudges,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, when we hold a grudge, we hold it on for sometimes years. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
they release that grudge straight away, right? They
It's
don't
just
need
unconditional,
therapists.
right?
It's unconditional. So children don't need therapists. They don't need to read a series of books in order to reach this state. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say with all my work is, this isn't something we have to learn. This is our natural state. We were
Mm-hmm.
born like this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually about unlearning all the crap that we've been given from society, and actually just returning back to that unconditional state that we all have through the heart space. That's where I talk about that
Mm-hmm.
the child within us is in the heart space, and that's why it's called social heartistry. But I mean, I could go on. I could talk about that all night. I'm sure you want to like go through a few more bits, right?
Yeah, and I truly understand what you're saying, whereby, you know, we get these feelings. It's kind of like, and this is how we do it, right? We get feelings coming in, but then you're saying we bottle it up. But this is the thing, the body, and this is something I learned from my good friend Preston Smiles. He says, you know, just like the human body, we take in food, we crap it out, right? We take in water, drink, whatever, we piss it out. But we take in feelings and emotions, and we suppress and suppress and suppress, right? And you're saying that the biggest thing for you, right, or I'm guessing for yourself, and this is how you came to it, is to realize that you can release, right? And so how else can someone release, like, you know, if someone feels like that, you know, they're not in their childlike state. I mean, it's not easy to say, it's all right, bro, you can go cry, right? And then the guy's just going to be like, what the hell are you talking about, John? Right? Screw you, right? I don't need to cry, right? But how else can other people, aside from like just opening themselves up to, I'm guessing you're talking about like the pain, and that's why you would cry. But how else can we actually tap into that childlike feeling, that state?
They can come on a workshop with me.
No,
No, we'll come to that later at the end.
yeah.
No, I mean, there's different layers to this, right? You mentioned one there, which is like the pain, like, you know, like Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, like Carl Jung calls it like the shadow. But this is like, for me, is one of the most important aspects. If we're prepared to take this journey, that's another thing. Firstly, the person has to be ready to take this journey and wants to transform themselves. If they don't, or if they go in half-assed, then nothing's really going to change, right? So they've got to be prepared to take that hero's journey. And you might have heard that the hero's journey kind of, you know, about, it came from Joseph Campbell and the hero with 1,000 faces. And he's talking about the monomyth, about, you know, like we always see this story played out in movies about like someone doesn't want to leave the village, and then they get tempted by a herald and they go on this journey. They cross the bridge, which is actually like metaphorically the point of no return. And then they go into like the belly of the whale, or they fight the dragon, and then they come back with the prize and they bring it back to the village. Yeah. So that for me is actually a metaphor for the human condition. And that's actually about the real hero's journey, is about us going inwards.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it really means. It's about us going into our own psychology. And the moment we actually find our pain, our emotional pain that's been buried since we were children, that's like that's the metaphorical belly of the whale. That's the dragon, you know. And in that moment, most people just want to avoid it, right? So most people actually don't even leave the village, do they? They like the Hobbit, they don't want to leave the village. I'm quite happy with my TV and my you know, my 50 stations on my TV and my bottle of Budweiser, you know, like most people are quite comfortable. But like, if you're prepared to really, as I said before, step through to the next level, you've got to be prepared to leave the village. And that means going into your own psychology, and you'll notice when you start doing this self-exploration work, the real spiritual journey starts when you find your pain. Okay, there's so many people that I've met that claim to be spiritual, but they haven't yet found their pain. And for me, that was the most important day of my life, when I started to tune in with my pain. Okay,
Yeah.
and part of that is as I said before, the soul looking to expand, and it's also tied in with our childhood wounds. So when we're young, we if you can imagine, when we're children, we're in the amniotic fluid in our mum's wombs, right? So everything's perfect. It's like the oceanic bliss. Then we come out of the womb and we're on the umbilical cord, so we're still connected to nourishment and life and everything, right? And then suddenly the umbilical cord gets cut, but we're with our mums, so we're always in our mum's arms, right? And then at some point we have to get separated from our mums, and in that moment it creates a huge trauma, because we've been used to that unconditional love for so long. Suddenly we're like, oh, we're without that love, so it creates such a pain in our bodies. It's like death. And what children do, we're so intuitively clever that we find ways to bury the pain, or remove the pain, or pacify the pain. So we might reach for the blanket, go for the dummy, get angry, develop our rational minds, develop a story that accompanies with it that says, I'm unworthy to be loved. Maybe I deserve to be on my own. These are all ways that children kind of manage and deal and escape the pain. Okay. Now what happens is, that's what forms our ego personalities. So in this case, the ego is just the behavior that protects against that vulnerable core, that broken-hearted feeling. Okay, so we live our lives always protecting ourselves from vulnerability, always protecting ourselves from that open-hearted feeling. But what's happened is we've developed so many shields over that, so many layers, that like we've forgotten what it's like to feel that vulnerable pain. Okay, so when you start making that journey into yourself, you're actually cracking through like the ego, and you're going back into that core again. And you'll know, like, you'll just, one day you might wake up and you're like, oh my God, I mean, like, it's excruciating for me. Excruciating pain. And I'll be honest, I still feel that it's still painful now.
Yeah, dude.
And
Tell us about that, man. Like, how did you actually like tap into yourself, and what caused you to actually look into yourself, and crack through that armor per se? Like, what was that event? And
it didn't come. I know we always want like one big
yeah.
revelation, right? But it came in waves.
Yeah.
It came in waves, but it was about becoming honest and vulnerable with myself. And actually, I mean, to be honest, if I can really trace it back, there was like a counseling session that I went to, and I was asked to join this because of my profession, and they said it might be interesting for me to do it. And it was very humbling experience to be in this like circle with other people. And it was like for men and women, and these men and women were talking about being raped, being abused, not having a boyfriend for like 20 years, like just horrendous things, like their dad beating them up, like just lots of things. And it came round to me, and when it was my turn to speak to the group, I went, sorry guys, like, I'm fine, like there's actually nothing wrong with me, you know what I mean? And it was actually, everyone was like, oh, okay. And then we came back the next week, and I said, oh, I don't know if it's I don't think it's of any significance, but like, sometimes I have a sexual block, like when I'm with women in bed, and I just spoke like honestly and vulnerably about that. And suddenly, like, they were like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. Like, that's really interesting. Share that with us. And then I started to go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe this came from my childhood about like not feeling protected, not feeling safe. And this like has the effect of like shutting my lower chakras down. And then when I started to go into it, I started to like go back into my childhood and actually remember certain scenarios and circumstances, and actually go, fuck, that was actually quite tough. Some of the stuff I went through, like feeling so defenseless and helpless. At times I was like trying to put a wet flannel over my face to try and like commit suicide, even though like I probably wouldn't have gone through with it. But like as a child, I was so desperate and so I so wanted to be seen and heard that I was like trying to create like, something very dramatic like that. And for a little child, that's a lot to deal with, right?
Yeah, man.
And so suddenly I started to like feel back into that little child of me, and it was almost like reconnecting with the little child in me.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like, oh, there you've been. All that the little child was saying, there you've been. You've abandoned me all this time. You've abandoned me for 25 years. And what's happened is, since doing that work, it's made me hyper sensitive, which you can say is a gift or you can say is a curse. Okay. And what that means is, if I'm around people that are like bad bad vibes, you know,
Yeah.
like I start to get like it's like a sensor goes off in my heart. I can feel this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
also like helps me with decision making, because if something feels heavy in my body, I know to leave it. Yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
also like the downside is if I'm walking through a train station, it's like huge heaviness. I can feel the anxiety and weight of everyone. Okay.
Wow.
So this is me anyway. This is because I think I'm like a hyper empath. I pick up on energies everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm, and this is part of my work. What I'm teaching is the reconnection to that child self within us. Okay, because
Mm-hmm.
it's within the child self which is where we bring ourselves back into wholeness. And I mean, this could go on a whole tangent, but like I said, when we were young, we encountered that pain. It shattered our hearts. It broke our hearts. And if you can imagine, we fragmented. Parts of us went outwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I believe the spiritual path is about bringing all those parts back in to ourselves and bringing ourselves back into wholeness, which is in the heart space. And that's actually why, if you look at another monomyth, another hero's journey, let's say The Wizard of Oz, and I
Mm-hmm.
had this conversation with a friend of mine, Lorna. Now, that's a metaphor for healing the heart and actually taking that hero's journey into the heart space. That's why the Oz is green. It's the green emerald city. And if you notice, the chakra is green. If you look at the chakra systems, the chakra is green. And there's a scene, and you know, Yellow Brick Road. It's like taking the journey, and it's like the returning back to Oz, going back to that Emerald City, which is what I believe is the heart space. And there's a funny scene in Return to Oz where the Dorothy has to she has to touch 5 objects in the room, and she set this mission, and she realizes that she has to touch 5 green objects. And for me, that's a metaphor for actually reclaiming and bringing back all those fragmented aspects of ourselves and bringing it back into wholeness, bringing it back into the heart space. And that's why it's called Social Heartistry. It's about doing that, the heart healing work. And you can do that through meditation. I've got loads of meditations that I do, heart healing meditations, but also as an expression of coming from heart-centered awareness. It's important to move through the world from a place of unconditional giving, move through the world from a place of play. Okay, playing is very important, to play.
Yeah.
And autonomy, I call it, which is about not needing results, finding the fulfillment through the process, not through the outcome. And those are my 3 core principles that I teach in Social Heartistry when it comes to social engagement. And so that all those things combined are the pure heart of a child. And if you think about it, when a child enters the world, they're closer to the universal source. So they are more connected. And like I said, they're in like the mum's womb where everything feels connected. But then they feel that the pain of separation. They also learn that they're conditioned through fear from the parents. They start to label things and crystallize the world through touch and through words and through labels. And everything starts to get compartmentalized and separated and broken down and you know, like fragmented. Okay. And the work that I'm doing through the field of the heart is to return back, almost like stop the wheels going forward and return them back and go back into that purity again. And it's almost like dissolving the boundaries and the barriers and actually feeling the connectedness to everything, and actually just being like a child that just runs out into the playground. Remember when you were a child and you just ran into a playground? There was no approaching. There was no judging. There wasn't like, oh, that's a black person, that's a white person, that's a Jewish person. It was like, let's just play. Yeah. And so that's the child spirit. And that's what I'm doing with my work, is to get people to see the world that way, see the world through the eyes and heart of a child, and just jump into the unknown of life's playground and just start to create with people. And that for me is the key. So the access code to the God self is through the heart of a child. And that's why I believe the work that I'm doing now has a much greater, profound effect and impact, going way beyond just the dating world. And it's about actually bringing humanity back together, bringing people back together and letting us all express ourselves through love.
Oh man, so many golden nuggets, man. Like, whoa!
So I tried to pack as much into that as I could.
My head just exploded, John. And one of
Yeah.
the big things that I want to highlight a lot, and this is what you started off with, that's sunk me, and I think people need to realize this, is that it's not just one moment in your life that boom explodes and then your whole life changes. And this is what you said the most, is that it's a constant, it's a wave of things, right? It's hitting that
Yeah.
same point over and over. And it's not to feel crap. And it's like, oh, I thought I sorted this out already. But because there's so many layers, you got to keep going in and in and in. And I love that.
And, you know, and also, you know, like just when you think you've come out of something, sometimes you go back into it again, right? That's another one that I've gone through, right? Okay, so you might take a step out and you're like, oh yes, done it. And then like and then you go back and you're like, oh man, you know, like I need to go back into my cave for a bit. You know, so for me, like it's never just like an exponential like growth, you know, like it's kind of like one step forward, two steps back, then it's like two steps forward, five steps back, and then it's like I'm definitely feeling that at the moment. Even just in the last week, let me tell you something. So like I've had like a crazy, especially the last few months, where like I've had so much like emotional pain come up for whatever reason. A lot of it's childhood psychology that's coming up. A lot of it is actually me tuning into the collective pain of the planet, I believe, as well. And I'm picking up on that like an antenna. And even this week, I had moments where like I had such a heaviness that like I was finding myself crying, just irrationally crying, you know. And I was just like, oh my God, I just can't deal with this pain at the moment. And then the next day I woke up and it's like it was spring, and suddenly I was just like, I felt really like hopeful, and I felt really good. I felt really creative. I felt really light. I felt really like dancey. And then the next day, suddenly it was like being back in like the rivers of Mordor. You know what I mean? I was like, it was just like I couldn't believe it. So you've just got to be the sailor that rides the seas. You know, you've got to be the sailor that rides the seas, not trying to control the seas. And so and that for me, you know, just keep your eye on where you're going, like the shore that you're heading towards, but just be able just to ride with whatever you've got coming your way in that moment. As long as you don't take your eye off the shore where you're going, you'll be fine, you know. And so that this is something that doesn't get talked about, Richard. Yeah, and it's like embracing your pain. Embracing your pain. No one talks about this because that's seen as unsuccessful. Someone that's in pain is not doing something right. They'll be thrown you know, personal development books and courses, right? Because it's like, don't be in pain. Pain is an important part of our development. Okay, if we're not feeling into our pain, we're only feeling into the light, then we're only a half being.
Yes.
You know, we're only a fucking half being. Yeah. Our journey is about returning back to being a whole being, and that means the pain and the light. Yeah. So a girl, here's another revelation you could say, is a girl once said to me, said, John, you're fun loving, you're charismatic, you're great fun, but I don't see your pain. The one thing you don't give is your pain. And that was like, whoa, that was probably the best advice I ever got from a woman.
Yeah.
And since then I know what she means now. And that is about like accepting the parts of me that are in pain, and accepting the flaws, accepting the imperfections, and bringing that to the world, and not feeling like I've got to always have a Cheshire grin smile and be happy all the time. Someone that's always happy is depressed. Someone that's always wearing happiness to people is behind the scenes compensating for something. They're very depressed, lonely people. Okay. You don't want to be a happy person. You want to be a real person. Okay. You want to be real. Okay. So I've met too many people, and they're constantly in like happy, social butterfly, everything's lovely, everything's happy, but like deep down there's something going on there. There's an insecurity they're masking, and what you really want to be doing is like embracing that pain, accepting that pain, and being with that pain. And at the same time, you know, letting that, you don't have to let that out to people like, oh, I'm so miserable, like I hate myself, but just like through your beingness, through your being, it comes out through like the pores of your skin. It comes out through your tone that you're real. Yeah. Even when you're having a conversation, like if you're always happy, then you'll never have a real soul connection with someone. You'll never have a deep connection with someone, because it's always just like in the clouds. You know, you've got to have the clouds and the ground. You've got to integrate the clouds with the ground, bring the heaven and the earth together, come from that place. And that's when you make a real penetrating soul connection with someone. Yeah. And so that's that. And for me, you have to, part of that is embracing the pain.
Yeah, and I think it ties in so well with what Gary Vee says, right? It's like, it's all about the clouds and the dirt. And I think it's not even the dirt, it's about the mud, right? It's about the mud, because it's dirty, it's messy, it's painful to be there. And I love what you say here, because I mean, this is something that I've experienced as well, brother, right? Is that, you know, it's all about experiencing this pain and being, you know what? I've gone through a breakup with like my fiance and I feel like crap. And I know what you're talking about. Like one day it's spring, it's awesome. And then the next day it's like, man, I got to go through Mordor again. Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you just reminded me of something. But you think about our seasons,
mhm.
right? We accept winter, don't we? We don't
Yep.
fight. We don't fight against winter because we know that the flowers of spring are going to come up, right?
Yep.
So in the same thing with us. If we're fighting to hold on to the sunshine all the
Mhm.
time, then it's like us trying to avoid winter, you
Mm.
know. And it's like a you know a sword isn't a sword until it goes through the blacksmith's fire. You know, it
Yes.
has to go through the blacksmith's fire for it to be a sword. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're not prepared to put yourself through that fire, then you're not a sword. You're not a
Mm.
real person, are you? So
Mm.
for me, it's important to do that work. And then going back to like the broken-hearted feeling as well. Okay, so if you're watching this, you might have a lot of viewers that are watching this saying, "Hey, look, I just don't feel pain. You know, I just don't have it. Like everything's fine." Well, just take those moments when like a girl breaks up with you, or like there's a death in the family, or like your pet dies, or you know something severe happens. Okay, that will bring up a heartache feeling. Okay, that will break your heart, because if we don't do this work ritualistically and actually take this hero's journey and try and learn about ourselves and connect with that pain, then what happens is our unconscious will bring up circumstances and bring in people into our lives that will create that pain.
Mm.
This is the understanding that I have now. Okay, so like there's a girl that I've known for the last 4 years, and I've slowly started to fall in love with her to the point where I did actually become quite attached to her. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not a guru yet. You know, I'm not enlightened yet. Right? And what happened was it created such a heartache feeling in my body that the instinctive thing that we do is that we have that heartache feeling and we take the symbol and we think the cause of that, and we take the girl, let's say the picture of the girl, and we stick it over the heartache feeling, and we then say it's because of this girl that's making this pain, right? But what I'm now understanding is it's they aren't the ones that created the pain. They're not the cause of the pain. They are the mirrors to the pain. Okay. So as I said before, when we have that traumatic experience when we're young, what happens is we bury it under the carpet, and then the unconscious wants us to heal it, so it will bring it up to the surface through um, attracting circumstances and people into our lives. So the pain comes up to the surface, it creates this heartache, and it's saying, now heal it. Be with me now. Come on, don't abandon me now. But what do? I'll have a cigarette. I'll have alcohol. I'll
Yeah.
go and do some pickup boot camps. I'll go and have loads of sex. I'll watch TV, ice cream, porn, and we push it back under again.
Mm.
And then it'll bring up something else in our life, like an aggressive boss or an aggressive boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, like friend, whatever. And then it's saying, right now, will you heal me?
Mm.
And then we go, oh no, but it's because of that girlfriend that's causing this. No, I'm not. Oh, maybe I need to find another girlfriend. And it will keep bringing up this pain to the surface, and it will bring in all these people to show us that as mirrors. But what we do is we try and comb the mirror.
Yeah.
We try and change results in the external world, but we forget that it's like scraping and howling at the movie screen rather than actually dealing with the movie projector.
Mm.
So when we get that traumatic schism when we're young, that pain, it's like if you can imagine it, like it shatters the glass on the movie projector, and so it creates the movie projection is always going to have like that crack in it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're trying to like fix the crack on the movie screen, but we forget it's like the movie projector that needs work. So
Mm.
every time that we have these events in our life that create that heartache feeling, we should go, thank you for that, because this is another thing I want to say is the greatest lesson women give us is when they break up with us. That honestly, that is
Oh,
one of the
huge.
most sort of profound things of realizations that I've had. The greatest lesson women give to us is when they break up with us, because what they're doing is they're making us go in and take the hero's journey, do the work, do the good work, you know.
Oh,
So you've got to say thank you to all these women that break up with us, or create that heartache feeling. It's because we brought them in from the deepest parts of our soul for them to create this pain, to shatter our hearts so they can grow. And if no one's breaking up with us, then we're like the person that's everything's happy, no problem, no pain. Whereas really they're not a real person, you know. So yeah.
oh, dude, that was amazing, man. I love that. And man, I really connect a lot with how you're saying sit with the pain, enjoy the pain, and be
Mm,
grateful for the pain. But at the same time, it's when you're dealing with it, it's not to go out and say, "Hey, John, I feel miserable. I feel shit, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
come. And it's like you're asking for pity. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to be in that state. Or if they do go in that state, then you get turned off, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to be like that guy, right? Or that girl who's just asking for pity. And so it's a huge point that you raised, man, about pain and being with it and learning how to accept it.
Accept it, and don't always want it to go away. That's another thing. Like the pain doesn't want to be healed. It wants to be held. It wants to be, it just wants to be accepted. So, if you can imagine when the pain comes up, it's like the little child that's been abandoned. So let's say we're the adults now, and we've abandoned like our son, and suddenly we've seen him for the first time in 20 years. He's going to be pretty annoyed with us, right? He's going to be pretty upset, won't want to talk to us much, right?
Yep.
So we have to address that pain like it's that little child that's been abandoned for so many years. We have to first be humble. It's like, is it okay if we talk? Is it okay if we reconnect? You might find that the inner child goes, fuck off. Like, you abandoned me. Like, I don't want to go near you. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a slow journey to reconnect with yourself. Okay. So I almost imagine like knocking on the door and going, is it all right to come in, little Johnny? And he's like, yeah, come in. And then I'm saying like, how have I upset you? Like, what is it you need right now? Is there anything that I can do to help? And then just sit with whatever feelings come up and just cradle it. Okay. And this is another important part of the heart healing work that I do in my work. But you've got to be the loving father. You've got to be like the larger transformative energy, like the adult awareness. Because if you go in like and you sympathize with that pain, then you get into like a harmonic resonance with the wound, and you become the wound. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like sympathy is when you emotionally share wounds with someone, right? Or vibrations. What I'm saying is you empathize with the pain, but you create, you're like a rock for that child. Like you would if you saw your little child being upset. You wouldn't cry and feel despair with the child. You would empathize, but you'd also be the loving parent that actually tries to bring the child out of it. So that's why you provide that larger transformative adult awareness, and you just cradle the feeling, and you can actually imagine invoking like your higher self. You can also do things like kind of Reiki, like healing hands, and actually imagine transmitting love and compassion to yourself. And you can put hands over your heart and imagine transmitting love into yourself. And that slowly starts to develop the connection with your pain, with your inner child, and it's powerful stuff. And a lot of people don't want to take the journey, and I would say be careful, because if you start this work, there is no going back. There's no going back, and it is like the bridge in these movies where they collapse and they can't go back. So you've got to decide, if you're watching this and you feel like you want to take this journey. That's why they call it the hero's journey, because it is like it's like movie blockbuster. It is like Star Wars. It's Star Wars, So yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, John, man. I mean, this has been such an amazing chat, brother. Right, and we've really gone over time because I'm like just so engaged with it, man.
I know.
It's cool, man. So let's get into it, and we're gonna go into the quick fire round questions. Right?
All right. Yeah.
So okay. We're gonna start off with our signature one, man. So this is what we call the time travel moment. Right. If you could go back any time in your life, John. Right. Back to seeing little Johnny, as you call him. Right. And you could tell yourself one thing that you know now. Where would you go back to, and what would you say to little Johnny, man?
Do you know what? I know this is not what you probably wanted me to say or expecting, but I wouldn't say anything, because for me to be in this position to share my wisdom with you means that like everything had to happen exactly how it happened, right? So if I was to go back in time and change something, then like I wouldn't be sat here like with all the wisdom, right? I needed to go through all the fuck ups. I needed to go through all those pitfalls, and for me to be where I am now. So I would say keep going. I wouldn't even change a thing, because let me ask you, Richard, is there anything that you would want to change? I mean, like, would you want to be anyone else than you are right now, sat here?
Oh man, now I'm getting interviewed, huh? I would say honestly, yeah, I'd probably give the same answer, man. I mean, like, even all the hurt, all the suffering that we've gone through, it's there for a purpose, and it's there to serve us in some shape.
So don't look back. Don't ever look back. Just look forwards.
Amazing, man. Awesome, dude. And so next question, John, man. I mean, you've read a lot of amazing books, man, but if there's an absolute must read, one book that people who are watching, listening must read, aside from your book Game Over,
Oh,
right?
oh,
I called you out, man.
yeah.
What would that be, man? What would be the other book? Because we'll add that into the
All
show.
right, I'm going to break another rule here, okay?
Uh-huh.
And this isn't what people are going to expect from me, okay? This is going to be controversial, but this is our role. Stop reading.
Ah, yeah.
Stop fucking reading now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now people are going to go, what do you mean? Like, reading's good. Reading's good. Like,
Yeah.
it developed. Yeah, I know reading's good. Okay, but what's happening now is it's gone too far, and people are consuming reading. It's
Mm-hmm.
becoming, the self-help is like becoming like the big pharma, like pharmaceutical company. It's like porn, and
Uh-huh.
people don't feel ready to step out there into the world and bring their message out into the world until they've digested and consumed 100 books. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what's so wrong about society, is that everyone is regurgitating what other people say, and instead of speaking their own message, okay, from experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
know this, there's so many coaches out there are like repeating back Tony Robbins and repeating back stuff they've read from 50 self-help books, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not them. That's not them. And you take any great person, Richard, take any like real, true, amazing, great person throughout the history of time. Did they copy anyone?
No, they just add a little bit on top of what they're really at, right? And
They
so,
were a unique message. They're a
yeah.
unique message to the world. The world needs unique messages right now.
Mm.
They don't need people to read more books and like kind of regurgitate a conglomeration of thought forms from other people. They need people to go out there, have the experience, and start bringing that out to the world. Yeah.
Mm.
So this is going to be controversial. I'd say stop reading now. Of course, if you want to read for fun, that's great. I'd say read for fun. But if you're reading something to gain knowledge or gain power, start to do away with that. Start to say to yourself, I'm ready. I'm ready. I can step out into the world. I don't need to read another fucking 5 self-help books. Because listen to the title, self-help.
Yeah.
The clue's in the fucking title there. You've got to reach a point where you help yourself. And you're
Mm-hmm.
not helping yourself if you're taking on ideas from other people. You've got to get the point where you can just burn your book, burn those self-help books, and go, I'm fucking ready now. Step out into the world and be an artist. And that's what Social Heartistry is about. Getting people to be the artist where just expresses without worrying about what people think.
Amazing, dude. Amazing, man. And so, just wrapping it up here, man. So,
Yeah. Sorry, that wasn't quick fire
no,
at all.
no, it's all right. It's all right. So, the next question, man. I mean, like, you work with a lot of guys, man. And, in the modern
Yeah.
world that we're living in, John,
Yeah.
what's a modern man really need to do, right? What's the world need from the modern man in today's world, man, that we're not delivering and that we need to start sharing and start being?
Yeah. Not vulnerable enough, not open enough. The modern man is becoming like the macho man, and it's about like who can have the most sex, who can get the nicest car, the nicest watch, who can show off the most, who can have like the biggest muscles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's like Geordie Shore culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
like like this show, you might have Jersey Shore. This is like, for me, the damaged masculine. So the
Mm.
damaged masculine is one that is like takes on the role of like pseudo masculinity, which is about like all those things I just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the world really needs is someone that is like open and vulnerable. You could actually say it's like the feminine qualities, okay? But someone that is okay crying, is okay speaking their pain, is okay asking for help. He's just being completely open and vulnerable, okay? And I've noticed this when I've gone to meet certain, you could say, like highly accoladed coaches and gurus, you could say, when you ask them like what's their pain and like what's their vulnerability, they go, I'm fine. And when they say that, they're covering up
Yeah.
an insecurity. And the new style of coach, you could say, not even man, but like I would say, like a leader, an inspiration to people, is someone that wears their fucking heart on their sleeve. Yeah. Instead of hiding behind the mask, right, and trying to be all tough and like big outer body, outer shell, everything's fine, like the Tony Robbins shirt and tie and looking all powerful, is the new style of coach. And you could say the new style of man is one that just he's certain in his uncertainty. Okay, he's secure in his insecurities. He speaks of his vulnerabilities. Like I just mentioned earlier about having sexual blocks in bed with girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how many is that alpha to a lot of people? Probably not, right? But that is alpha male to me, because it's like I'm open and vulnerable and I'm sharing that. Yeah. So so that's what the world needs. It needs men to we need to break open. That's what we need. We need to break open. Yeah.
Amazing, brother. Amazing, man. And one final question here, man. And I want this, from you, right? In the shortest way possible, right? Simply,
Mm.
what is true love? What's true love to you, brother?
Uh, Unconditional love. Yeah. Loving and letting go. And I had to do that with a girl recently where the girl that I was really attached to, I
Hmm.
had to kind of like, I had to properly let her go and say, I'm, I need to get on with my life. And I
Hmm.
had to actually let go. Love is letting go.
Hmm.
Yeah. Appreciating and being able to let go. Where love is not attachment. This is what I'm realizing now.
Yeah.
Attachment is fear.
Yep.
Whereas letting go, appreciation is love, and letting go is love, and it's
Oh,
unconditional. Yeah,
respect, brother, man. I
yeah,
really respect you for that. And dude, man, thank you so much for jumping on the show, John. Just pouring all this
mm,
love and heart out,
yeah.
man.
Thank
And
you.
so, for the people who want to get in touch with you, who want to learn more
Yeah,
about what you do, man, where's the best place they should check you out?
yeah. Thanks. So my personal website is thejohncooper.net,
Yep.
and also I'm building like a new mainframe website, which is socialheartistry.com.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to, in the meantime, join my Facebook community,
Mm-hmm.
and they can share their stories and like questions and stuff. That is facebook.com/groups/the John Cooper. And
Awesome.
I've also got like an academy, which I do 6 weeks, where I take people on this hero's journey. We talk about giving, play, autonomy, how to be childlike, how to improve your interactions with the world and with yourself. And yeah, man, that's kind of
Awesome.
it. My book is Game Over, which is my
Yep.
response to the book The Game, and it's about how there's a new way of interacting with women, and it doesn't come from the need to get results. It comes from, as I said before, just co-creating with them, like the sun. When a sun beams a ray of sunshine, it doesn't demand anything back, and the beauty comes from the broadcast, not from the result. And that's why yeah, that's and that for me is in the heart space. When you come from that sun energy, it comes from here, and you bring that out into the world from a place of creation. So that's
Love
it.
it.
If people like what I'm saying, and also if people want to like rally behind this message, because I'm not just helping men with women. I'm going into schools soon, and so I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say this, but like I'm actually in the process of creating a school where the adults learn from the children. Okay, so I want to create a whole new paradigm for education as well. But I believe this is going to be beneficial to bring more love into everywhere, not just the dating world. So if people really believe in my message, please drop me a message saying how you want to get involved. And I want to create like a little tribe of heartists.
Love it,
So
brother. Thank you
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
much, man. You're
yeah,
amazing, brother. Been an absolute pleasure and had so much fun here, man. We're gonna have to get you back when you get that school set up and just to talk more about it. So
definitely.
definitely, thank you again, man.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, brother.
All right, guys. So this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast today with the social artist, John Cooper. And so if you enjoyed this episode, if you got a lot out of this episode, make sure you share this out. Make sure you get it out. Make sure you get on iTunes and rate this so that we can actually get his message out there to the world, not just John's message, but all the other guests on this show, because we can't keep this a secret anymore. So make sure you head on over to iTunes. And of course, over to richardfood.com to get the show notes, right? All the links, all the resources that John's mentioned in this chat. And finally, guys, remember to go out there, go live with love, go smash it. I'll see you again on the next one.